Shockingly, at the moment, it's all a little bit quiet on the reform front, which just because that is, all quiet, uh, not necessarily a good thing. However, I want to take this moment to have a look, of course, at what's going on with the Green Party. Purely because of the fact, as I've said before, I think Zack Polanski is going to be a bigger disaster for the Green Party than David Icke was in the early 90s. People forget back in the day that Icke was leader of the Green Party and caused such a disaster after coming out declaring that he was the son of God. Again, real thing that happened. You can see the clip of him on Terry Wogan doing that in person. That it caused the Green Party to go through basically a decade of, well, almost political wildernessing, to say the least. And now, of course, you've got the Green elections going on, and Zack Polanski, of course, running. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens when he wins, because Zack Polanski is, in my way I've seen it and the way he comes across, I think he's very NLP coded. I've said this before. And NLP, if you don't know what that means, it means neuro-linguistic programming. And this is someone, again, we know he's been trained in this. We know he was a quack hypnotherapist. Totally not anything more worrying about from that side of his past could come out, right, guys? So there is a lot of stuff that comes across to me when he's seeing people, when he's doing these like street interviews. He comes across as super NLP coded. He gives 3 quote bad things about Labour and then 3 things about the Green Party, which are again good. And then says, well, who would you vote for? And you're like, obviously, because you've pretty much fed them who you want them to say, who do you think they're going to say? Not only that, I've seen a lot of these media campaigners or people who are on the campaign trail for other groups. And I will tell you this now, Zack Polanski comes across to me as someone who is a shadow on the wall. And this is a bit of a saying that goes around in the business world of, you get people who you are told by other people are good. Oh, this person's amazing. This person's fantastic. This person's wonderful. However, you've got to ask the question, what does this person actually do on this project? Because I've seen all those testimonials and, oh, Zack was great. He was such a strategist. And you're like, well, okay, what strategy did he come up with? What did he actually do and say that contributed to the strategy which led you to win or to be more successful? And he claims, of course, his big reason why you should vote for him is that he is the big reform whisperer, that he can not only pull people away from Labour, but from reform as well and bring them over to voting for the Greens too, which I would say, where has that ever happened? Can you give any examples of where that's happened? And bear in mind, this position he's running for is only for a year. So in a year's time, he's going to have to try and justify his entire strategy to the again the Green Party again to try and get him to vote for him. So he's got a year. And I've said this before, I think it is going to be an absolute mess because he is going to dive in headfirst into all these things, and it is going to end up being an absolute perfect disaster zone generally. So at this point, we're now going to go over to the green light. And I've said before, this is a bit of a turfy blog, but one of the things that they constantly do is that they spill a lot of the tea going on in the Green Party, which is really kind of interesting when you see some of this stuff. So we're going to go over there. As I've said before, bit turfy, I know, but I'm going there for the other information that they're talking about. So as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. Links down below, Patreon page, one affiliation link called Buy Me Coffee, YouTube thank you button, all that good stuff down below. So let's crack on then into this. So this, as I said, coming from the green light, and as I've said, a bit turfy, but we're not here for that. In fact, I would very, very much disagree with them on this, because I've thought about approaching the people behind this blog to get them on here, and every single time I can't bring myself to do it, because I am diametrically opposed to them. I do very, very much believe in trans rights. They're just gender critical. Yeah, it's that situation. But anyway, on to this. So, is this Zack Polanski's best acting role yet? This is undoubtedly a very good 3-minute short film. Hard-hitting, scripted, good photography, and of course, half-decent soundtrack to match. And the actor is not too bad either. But will Zack Polanski win the hearts and minds of a majority of Green Party members of England and Wales when called upon to be voted for the new leader? Polanski himself is very concerned that his social media campaign may not have reached large parts of the party, and that is the many hundreds of thousands of local party volunteers now working in their neighborhoods and communities. Their voices, of course, matter when electing a new leader. And this is kind of funny, because once again, if this is true that he is concerned about this, that his social media campaign may not have had this reach, this sort of once again goes against everything that he has been running on, because he's meant to be like, oh, we don't need the media, we've got social media, we'll just use this and we'll reach thousands of more people. But if he is apparently concerned about that his campaign hasn't had the reach into parts of party that he wants, this once again goes against the whole narrative that he pushes, that he's somehow some sort of, magic whisperer and amazing communicator, right? So, will, of course, the current deputy leader's unorthodox social media campaign strategy, of course, appeal and help recruit new party members? Will, of course, Corbyn's fan base and supporters of the Palestinian cause and progressive influencers such as Owen Jones and George Monbiot attract now a sufficient number of actual voters to beat the quieter and well-reasonably well-established team of MPs of Adrian Ramsay and Ellie Chowns? Again, very true. Will they beat them? Who knows? We'll find out, I suppose. But if he does win, as I said, I'm looking forward to the chaos. But I'm also looking forward to what happens when he doesn't win. Because as I've said before, I think if he doesn't win, he is jumping ship. He will jump into bed with the new Corbyn party pretty much instantly. Give it maybe a couple months, but I guarantee you now, he will jump instantly over from being a Green to the JC party. This will, of course, continue to remain a big unknown whilst the campaign is, of course, unfolding right up to the announcement of the result in September. Until and unless the number of new members who joined since Polanski's official campaign launch in June is publicized, the rules do not actually allow this to be done before such an elections. One can, of course, only speculate. And this is where it gets even more interesting, because this is, again, something that hasn't been brought up too much in the competition, in the contest, shall we, in the leadership contest. But this is true. The Green Party could be facing a bit of a financial problem in the not too distant future. So it continues with this: a nail biting time ahead, of course, for all concerned. Not at least now for the financial officer, Julian Cusack, who may be extremely worried that one or two now further court cases due to sex discrimination may bankrupt the party. The leaders would also be called upon to defend the party's policy on the Greens' idiosyncratic definition of transphobia. So, given what, again, I don't, I did say it was a very turfy blog, but those sex discrimination cases could very well likely happen. Very well likely happen. And what happens if that bankrupts the Green Party? There have been a constant number of things that I've seen and heard. That might be the case. So that's not good either. But the decisive factor in the end will, of course, be the turnout, as it always is. A low turnout will, of course, be in Polanski's favour. It will also benefit his supporters now for the deputy leadership, Morthine Ali and Rachel Millward. And of course, the dozens of identitarian candidates currently standing for the 13 GP executive posts. Oddly enough, this very sharp-hitting, hard-hitting propaganda film may actually backfire on our eco-populist. The agitprop messiah, the very vast, of course, majority now of ordinary members who work very hard to keep things together in their localities and regions to try and get the Greens elected, are, of course, rather conservative lot with a small c. And I've said this before. Zack Polanski, the death moment for the party would be if he came out the second he got elected and say the Green Party is now a socialist party. Because there are a lot of there are again a lot of Green Party members, or conservatives, who are very small c conservatives. This isn't new. This is not new. This has been a part of the Green Party makeup for a very, very long time. A very long time. What happens to them? How do they feel about all that? Would they leave en masse? Who knows? So the evidence of this is at least relatively the modest number of Green councillors of 150 out of over 800 who have now pledged their support for their colleague and aspiring leader. And again, 150 out of 800, that leaves you with, again, about what, 750, I believe it is? No, 650. Again, maths. But yeah, it leaves you with a significant number of councillors who haven't declared or may have declared for the opposing leadership team. Like I say, trouble ahead for the Green Party. Many members, of course, Zack's call to, quote, learn to pick a fight and his personal attacks against his opponents with the use of his put downs is just too much for some to bear and might be too much of a risk. The worst scenario, as an experienced member from the Doncaster shared recently with the Greenlight, again, the Green Party up here is, again, its own strange mix of people, but you'll see in a moment here. So, as this was recently shared from a member of Doncaster saying, the job, of course, is only for 1 year. One can, of course, only hope that the grassroots members will not be so cynical and that a robust majority will use their democratic right to at least vote en masse. So, again, he's right. A lot of people going, well, let this guy run for a year and let him fail. That seems to me to be the a defining factor from a lot of the, shall we say, Greens that I've seen at least are against Polanski. So we'll see. But Green Party leadership and these types of votes do tend to have a very low turnout. As I've said, if you could somehow manage to mobilize like 300 people and get them to a Green Party conference, you could vote through some very weird stuff. You could basically force all Green MPs to wear, a clown wig as like an official part of their uniform. You could actually force that through. Again, as I've said, there are pros and cons to this type of way of running a political party before. But as always, let me know what you think about all this. Of course, as I've said, yeah, I will agree with you. It's a very turfy blog, but time and time again, this blog has like dropped some very interesting inside information about what's going on in the Green Party, and we'll see who wins this contest come September. As I've said, if Zack Polanski wins, well, let's watch the chaos unfold, shall we? And if he doesn't win, well, I am willing to say he's probably going to jump to the JC party. So, as always, let me know what you think about all this. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.